ideal. Teachers have the disagreements, principals, you may not like that person for a minute or so, and so we have tempers. And let's go with the old-fashioned way. I know that's not happening, but the old-fashioned way is to talk it out or duke it out. If you get a blow or two, but you are not dead. So, that's where I am with that. So, no, I will not support the Columbia Public School having the riflemans up in there. I don't believe in that at all.
Well, I for one, am not going to duke it out with Ellen. I know when I'm overmatched. So, look, I don't know. I haven't seen the legislation. I don't know what they're talking about. I will tell you, in all candor, I wouldn't reject it out of hand, but I would want to see what they're talking about. To Della's point, do we want every person, walking around a gun strapped or walking around school strapped? Of course not. That doesn't make any sense at all. But what are we talking about? I don't know what the legislation contemplates. Is it talking about police officers? Is it talking about dedicated resource officers being able to carry firearms? Is it talking about special designated security personnel? Is it just talking about teachers, administrators? I mean, I don't know. I don't know what they're talking about. What I can say is that, again, to circle back to what we talked about in the beginning, I think Columbia Public Schools right now are doing a pretty good job. And I think that there's always room for improvement. You always want to look at enhanced safety measures to make sure that we're protecting not only our kids, but our teachers and our educators and our administrators in our classrooms. Unfortunately, we live in a world where people lose their tempers or are otherwise unstable and do some incredibly violent and horrific things, and we want to protect ourselves against that. And does that include, in some mix, having armed personnel in a school or ready to be armed in a school on a moment's notice? I mean, that might make sense. I don't know. I don't know exactly what we're talking about. So I don't think we should reject it out of hand. I don't think we should embrace it universally. But I guess that comes back to what we talked about earlier, which is local control. I certainly don't think we should be letting Jefferson City make that decision for us. I don't think we should let Washington, D.C. make that decision for us. I think we need to look at it here in Columbia. So, yeah, I've got 14 seconds left, and I'm going to yield that to Mr. Willoughby.
When it comes to the larger national conversation around guns, I'm not going to be touching on that topic. I'm going to be really focusing on the local area. I agree with Jay that local control is what's really important here, and the local district having that conversation and deciding where that goes. We don't need the state telling us what we need to be doing in this arena. When it comes to, and the reason why I say that is because we do have good safety measures that are working and what we are comfortable with having, and it seems that we're not having to, I haven't talked to any parents or teachers that dislike what we have been doing. And so if there are areas where parents and teachers feel that we can improve, all right, that's where we have that conversation and we see what we can do, or where we need to be saying, all right, we'll be able to do that in a couple of years. But when it comes to specifically about having guns in CPS, I would say no to the majority of people having guns on a school. I don't want to offer our teachers that option. I grew up in Alabama, so I went hunting. As I said, I was a military brat, so we had guns in the house. It's not about me thinking that guns are awful things and that there are not useful ways of using them for other things. School isn't one of them. Now, I do think if as a school board we said we're going to let those that are certified by the city, police officers, to come on property and have their gun, sure, okay. That's something that I would be willing to have the conversation about, because those are people that should be having that. But that's also where then it looks at the policies that the city is making them go through and the trainings that they have to go through to make sure that the way that they're trained, it's going to be at the best safety measures for our children. And I say that not meaning that I think the city is not doing that. I'm just saying that that's my assessment of making sure that whatever the training is, it is meeting a need of it's what's best for our students. Because at the end of the day, every decision that this school board makes is about that.
All right, we're nearing the home stretch. So, we're ready to hear your final statements. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to let us know a bit about you and why voters should consider you to serve them on the school board. Mr. Atkins will begin with you, then we will have Mrs. Streety Wilhoit, and then finally we'll finish with Mr. Willoughby.
All right, thank you. I will try and squeeze this all in 2 minutes. And I've touched on a lot of this throughout the questioning tonight, so I don't need to belabor it. But I really have five primary platforms or pillars of my campaign, if you will. First is, and I talked at great length about this one, but I really do think the goal of this district needs to be 100% reading proficiency for all students across the board. I'm very serious about that. I don't know how we reach that goal. I don't know exactly what it's going to take to get there, but I know that that should be the goal. Second is, I want to, and we didn't talk about this at all, but I want to expand and improve gifted education. I think we do a really good job. I mean that really both in terms of expanding the program through secondary education levels, but also in early identification to make sure we're getting all the kids that ought to appropriately be in that program. I think our gifted kids are an at-risk population that are often overlooked. They have some, if we don't have them in programs that know how to give them the tools they need, then I think we see some historically bad outcomes, higher instances of dropout among that population, higher instances of drug and alcohol abuse, and that's just a waste of human potential that I don't think our district wants to be involved in. So I want to expand and improve our gifted education program, protect local control. I talked about that at length. I mean that in two fronts, both let's make sure we have a bigger and bolder presence down in Jefferson City to engage on issues that are going to affect this district so that we can be part of that conversation, but I also mean it in terms of teachers having control in their classrooms. Fourth, I want to make sure that I want to look at our technology and infrastructure, making sure that we're not just deploying technology for the sake of doing it, but making sure we're leveraging it in a way that maximizes its educational potential. And then the same thing with our infrastructure. I want to make sure we're squeezing every last bit of efficiency out of the assets we have before we start looking for, just have a knee-jerk reaction to go build more buildings. And then finally, and I think everybody on the board is going to agree with me on this one, but I want to make sure that we improve communication between teachers and parents and the board. Thank you.
Well, first of all, I do want to say thank you. Thank you for listening to us, and I hope that we have gave you a glimpse of ourselves. I have 3 platforms, and that is the communication. And I have spoke to many people, and I've said that I want us to communicate the accomplishments of the Board of Education on the behalf of the community. I believe very strongly that there's so many things that the board is doing that you may or may not know about. I think that they are doing a good job of communicating, and I want to advance that voice and communicate even more. Whether it's through forums or just coming out and visiting, I want you to know that regardless of if we can talk about it, it does not mean I'm going to agree with you, but we can certainly agree to disagree. So the communication is going to be very, very important. Once we do that, we need to build trust. There's so much distrust in the community about what the teachers are doing, what the principal is doing, and also what the school board is doing. So I want to build the trust, and then by doing that, I want to provide progress towards identified standards. And the biggie for me is the academic and the educational equity. I'll just quickly say that it is about the students, but it's also about the teachers as well. The educational and the equity and the academic equity quickly is about the STEM program, advancing that. The achievement gap, decrease that achievement gap between blacks and white. Try to look at higher salaries for our teachers, counselors, and so forth, as well as the social equity. So thank you so very much.
Thank y'all for coming out tonight and listening to us answer your questions. I hope it's helped you understand who we are as candidates and what we are wanting to bring to the board if elected. What I want to bring, if you elect me as your board member, is a fresh perspective of being a young, community-engaged artist educator. I'm the closest in life experience to understanding how our high schoolers and our students in the entire school district are navigating being life ready for when they graduate. And I understand the importance of a quality education to prepare them for that, but I also believe that adding arts into STEM will allow them to take their skills into the community and offer it in creative and innovative ways. I also believe that being community engaged and being constantly present and in and around our district is going to make sure that we are hearing and listening to this community. And why I have that is because at the end of the day, we can say we want to have these achievements, we want to have these goals, we want to do all these things. But if we don't really have a plan as candidates, then it's hard for us to be able to do something and let you guys know how it's going to happen. For me, how I see that happening, how I see getting and achieving all those goals is one of the core things about my candidacy. And it is about this community engagement. And as I shared a little bit earlier, what that has looked like is I've gone to the bargaining meetings for the union. I've gone to all of our policy committee meetings for in the work. I haven't gone to all of the work sessions just because of other conflicts. But going to all these areas, I also went to the Como SEPTA, which is our Special Education Parent and Teacher Association. And why all that is because at the core of my candidacy is I want to ensure that no matter who you are, no matter what your race, your job title, your gender, your socioeconomic status, your sexuality, your age, or your varying abilities, that you are heard and that your perspective is represented on this board because you are the school board, not just the 7 of us.
All right, thank you very much. Guys, that concludes our 2019 CMNEA School Board Forum. We hope you guys found this educational and helpful, but now you have to use your knowledge and take it to the polls, okay? So if you're not registered to vote, March 10th is the last day to get
March
6th.
Oh,
Thank you.
Yeah.
I wrote 10, so that's my bad.
March 6th is the last day to register to vote, and the election will be April 2nd. Is that right?
Yes.
Right.
Okay. April 2nd, all right? So get out there, allow your voice to be heard, and really support Columbia Public Schools. Thank you so much on behalf of me and Shelley Thielen. We appreciate you guys coming out and being a part of the community.
Thank you.
We enjoyed it.